So our next presentation now is about how to future-proof in a digital-first world. Think Web 3.0 and NFTs and everything else that comes with it. So please welcome to the stage for the next presentation, the Group Head of Digital from Kamal Osman Jamjoom Group, Mr. Phillip Smith.
Aha, there we go. Okay, so just a quick intro. My name's Phillip Smith. I'm the Group Digital Director for Kamal Osman Jamjoom Group. We operate multiple brands in the Middle East, such as The Body Shop, Naomi, Lego, Mikiyaji, Subway. We have about 10 brands in our portfolio. That's kind of my Web 2 world. I'm responsible for digital and parts of technology across the group. But today I'm actually going to be talking more about the Web 3 world, which I'm also part of in the capacity of decentralized autonomous organizations which are run on the blockchain. I'm also a Doodle token holder, which I'll go into a bit later. I'm also founder of Web3.com, which is kind of like a ramp and onboarding for people into Web3. And I'm also, what actually brought me into Web3, I'm a digital art collector, which I started about 2 years ago. So just quickly, a bit of housekeeping. Any of the projects I've referenced to in this presentation are not financial advice. As you probably heard, Web3 is a very volatile industry, and I don't want you putting all your life savings into any of the projects that I'm going to present today. These are purely projects that are making headway in Web3, and I'm not necessarily advising to invest in them. So basically, I'm going to cover off what is Web3 quickly, we'll try to in simple terms. I'm going to just talk about who's building and who are the Web3 brands of the future, really. The brands that are building their roadmaps to basically accommodate mass adoption. So what is Web3? So Web3 is basically a new iteration of the internet. Web 1 is essentially when the internet was released into the public in the 90s. Web 2 is when basically social media uprose in the mid-2000s. And then Web 3, basically there's a couple of real game-changing elements to Web 3. Web 3 is basically a way to show digital asset ownership. So basically, we can prove on a blockchain ledger, who owns a digital asset. So even if there's multiple copies of that digital asset, we know who the original creator was and who actually owns that digital asset at that time. So Web3, yeah, there's a lot of components to it. It umbrellas all of the technologies of blockchain. I've just referenced a few here, but there's so many. So basically, when you use these components to build products or apps, then basically they're considered Web3 products. Now, the metaverse is probably the biggest word you've been hearing a lot of. Now, the metaverse actually sits under the Web3 umbrella. The metaverse is built out of the components of Web3. So don't confuse metaverse as being Web3. It's actually been built from the components of Web3 and actually some of the components of Web2. I didn't come up with this, but I saw this about 18 months ago, and it really helped kind of understand what the differences are. So Web 1 is basically read. So when you think about the internet back in the 90s, basically you were just reading stuff right on a screen. It was kind of like maybe a news article or some kind of web page which a company had made, and all you could really do was read it. You couldn't really interact with it. Now, Web 2 was kind of uprose when we had apps. If you look at companies like Apple, they enabled us to actually spend a lot of time within apps, and basically with the growth of social media, we kind of moved onto apps as the internet. Now, the challenge with Web 2 at the moment is basically all of our lives are sitting on these apps, and they're actually very centralized, and they're just sitting on a handful of company servers. So Web 2 isn't ideal in terms of the internet. So Web 3, it's all about owning digital as well. So we're reading, we're creating our own content, posting it on social media, but at the same time, we can now actually own our digital assets. Now, my profile picture here, basically it's got a token ID, which is the non-fungible token. And what actually happens is that is created in a smart contract on the blockchain. Now, the blockchain, whenever that digital asset is sold or moved, it's actually written on the blockchain on a ledger so that you can actually track the life of that, or the life of the ownership of that digital asset. So if I sold this tomorrow, it will then be registered on the blockchain that the new person has bought this under their wallet ID. So basically, we're now in Web3 where, you know, we're big content creators on Web3, on Web2. But we've never actually really owned our digital assets or our data. So Web3 really is a game changer in the sense that it shows ownership of digital assets. So what I'm going to do is just cover today like who's building in Web3. You've probably seen in the press a lot about the traditional brands that are working on Web3, such as like Starbucks, Dolce Gabbana, and a lot of the other well-known brands. But I'm going to actually talk about some of the Web3 native brands who are actually making really big headway. And not just me, but a lot of people believe that they will be brands of the future. Before I go into the actual brands though, so I'm going to be talking predominantly about NFTs. Why? Because this is a retail setting. NFTs are essentially a new commodity. So as a retailer, obviously that's really appealing if you can start selling digital products. So the brands I'm referencing here are kind of consumer brands, let's say. So NFTs, just to clear this up, because you've probably heard NFTs are dead, crypto are dead, the metaverse is dead. It was all hype. Well, yeah, last year NFTs, you know, you see these big spikes. These were actually driven by a lot of speculation. They were driven by a lot of crypto traders actually wanting to just make some money. So we've seen kind of that crash out this year, and it's been a good thing because what it means is that people have, or the speculators have moved aside, and now the builders are actually building. So why am I still bullish, and why are a lot of people still bullish on NFTs? Because this is what's happening. The builders are building at a rapid pace, faster than we ever did in Web 1 and Web 2. If you look at this year, you know, it's up 200% in terms of people downloading Ether.js, which is essentially the language to help you build on top of the blockchain. And if you look at smart contracts being deployed onto the blockchain, that's increasing as well this year. So people are building at breakneck speed in Web3. Now, I'm going to cover off basically 4 main brands in Web3. Reason I'm covering off these 4 brands, it's not really my personal preference, it's just that these have been making the most headway. They've been making some really solid foundations, let's say, to take them to the next level in terms of going global. So I'm going to start with Bored Ape Yacht Club. I'm just going to ask at the beginning of each of these brands, just show of hands if anyone's heard of Bored Ape Yacht Club. Okay, quite a few. So Bored Ape Yacht Club is actually the biggest NFT project that there's ever been. Hence why they're already a unicorn. They've raised $450 million at a valuation of $4 billion, so it's kind of like the first NFT unicorn. Now they first launched with the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs. About 18 months ago. Those have traded 684,000 ETH. ETH price today is about $1,200. So they've traded a huge amount. They've got other collections under their umbrella, but this is kind of like their Genesis key collection. Now they're taking a real metaverse approach. They're in the process of building their own metaverse. Now they actually raised $561 million off the land sale of that earlier this year. So what they're basically doing is using those proceeds to build their own metaverse. And actually yesterday it was announced they've just acquired another Web3 company, 10KTF, which is basically a company which builds digital wearables for avatars. So they're really going into the metaverse. What's interesting with Bored Ape Yacht Club as well is that we've got sub-brands spinning off of it. If you're a Bored Ape Yacht Club holder, you actually have licensing rights to your Bored Ape. So you can actually take that Bored Ape and create your own brand as a holder. There was a group of holders who teamed up with M&M's and they created packs of M&M's basically to sell. Okay, it's maybe a bit of a gimmick for M&M's, but it just showed that they could take their own licensing rights from their own NFT and actually take it to a big brand. There's another person who's been opening Bored and Hungry burger bars, somebody creating Ape Water, and Snoop Dogg and M&M actually own Bored Ape Yacht Clubs themselves, and they released a track earlier this year with a video using their Bored Apes. So you've got kind of like the master brand, and then you've got sub-brands coming out from underneath. Doodles, so basically Doodles is taking a different approach. They're going into like entertainment and media. Doodles actually launched October last year. The three guys in this picture here, that's Evan, Burnt Toast and Poopy. So the guy in the middle is actually the artist, Burnt Toast, and the two guys either side, they're basically the product and tech guys. So they launched Doodles in October. Now, they had huge success, but what they'd done, they didn't just only raise money, they raised $54 million at a $700 million valuation. They want to take it really mainstream, Doodles. So they want it to be the avatar that you will all have on your phone, but it will be connected to entertainment and media. So what they've done, the guy in the middle is actually he was the CEO of Billboard magazine. And they actually poached him from Billboard magazine and brought him on as CEO. They also brought on Pharrell Williams as the brand director, and Pharrell's actually in the middle of making an album right now with various other artists, which is all going to be under the Doodles umbrella. So Doodles is really taking a different approach to Bored Ape Yacht Club. They're going really down into the entertainment and media. You could probably think they're almost like the iTunes of the future. Now, they've got a main focus of onboarding about 5 million people. That's their headline in what they want to do. They want to onboard 5 million people into NFTs, basically. And they're using these things called duplicators and Genesis boxes. I won't go into all the details, but basically it allows you to replicate certain attributes on the original Doodles, which people can use. It's not fully been shown. Sorry, there was a video there, but I don't think it's playing. They were originally going to basically try and get 5 million people on board, but being able to sign up on a lower price point. If you were going to buy any of these NFTs right now, they're kind of not in a realistic price range. So they want to bring down the cost of NFTs to a really accessible price point with Doodles too. RTFKT, pronounced Artifact. Now, they were building last year this project called Clone X. So basically, it's an avatar project. And the idea of that was that not only do you have an avatar, but you can also essentially mint digital wearables and physical wearables. Now, they had huge success in December when they dropped Clone X. And they actually got acquired by Nike quite quickly afterwards. There's no confirmed amount of investment on that, but the rumors in the communities and et cetera it was plus $1 billion. Now, Nike are using Artifact as basically their ramp into Web3. Now, if you look at what Nike have taken in NFT revenue via Artifact, that's actually over $200 million now. This is a bit out of date. But the big difference between Nike and these other brands, they didn't try and do it themselves. They basically acquired a very successful, established Web3 brand and company. So they kind of didn't try and do it themselves, even though they're Nike and there's a lot of things they can do themselves. They knew they had to kind of acquire a big Web3 project which they could put under their umbrella. And they just actually announced yesterday .swoosh. You might have seen this all over LinkedIn. That's actually been driven by Artifact and the founders of Artifact that now sit under Nike. So yeah, they're kind of going into the digital wearables and physical wearables, so more of a fashion focus. Now the last brand, Gary V, you've probably heard of him. He's highly successful in Web2, been all over social media for like the last 10 years. He created his NFT collection in May last year, which was quite early. He actually hand drew 10,000 NFTs. They look like kids' drawings, but they're actually drawn by him. Now, this does look laughable on the face of this, but actually some of these have been auctioned in Christie's last year for quite large sums of money. And basically, what the point he's getting across with this is that these are tokens. It's like an access pass for me to give you real-life activations. So you can access his VCon festival if you own one of these NFTs. He's opened a restaurant in New York that you can access if you own this NFT. But not only that, he's actually teamed up with Macy's and Toys R Us. There's now toys of V-Friends that you can buy in their stores. And he's also done a collaboration with Uno cards, the game cards, so you can actually buy V-Friends. So Gary V, his token is very much bringing together NFTs and real-life products and activations. So as you can see, you know, these Web3 brands are doing things very differently. They're doing them in a different way. And I think, you know, we are going to see more Web Web3 brands, like native brands, come up over the next couple of years. But what's important, we do really need the traditional brands as well to help with mass adoption. If you think about Starbucks, for instance, who have launched their NFT collection as a loyalty program, imagine if Starbucks rolled that out globally across all their stores. That really helps with mass adoption for Web3. So I think we're going to see more of the native Web3 brands come up, but at the same time, the traditional brands will help drive adoption. The challenge at the moment, in most cases, the user interfaces and the user experiences are not really there. They're quite clunky, quite difficult. So that's another challenge there is. But I think as retailers today, what we really need to do before the mass market comes, because they are going to come really fast, particularly when we get central bank digital currencies, we're going to really see mass adoption happen fast. We need to take this opportunity and learn, basically, before you start running off building, before you start, trying to run into the metaverse and these kind of things. My message is just try and upskill yourself today, because when the mass market comes, they're going to come a lot harder, a lot faster than they did in Web 2, and it would be good if you're not on the back foot and you can actually, build your own products in a Web 3 setting. So thank you. Are we doing questions? I think we're going to take questions, are we? Yeah? Okay. Yeah? Does anybody have any questions? Yeah?
So I'm probably going to reveal my age here, but I don't fully understand what an NFT is. Like, what is the purpose of an NFT? So what are we doing with that? Or what is it for? Like, why did it come about?
Yeah, so ultimately the NFT is a token number on the blockchain, which somebody owns that token number. Now, that token number can be attached to any piece of media. So it could be an image, it could be a piece of music, it could be a video. Now, basically, the ownership is attached to that token ID, and the token ID is attached to the piece of media. Now, what we're seeing here is kind of, in terms of the purpose, there's lots of different purposes for them in terms of what you do with them. So, and these brands are kind of some of those which are showing that. So basically, I think the game-changing element of this is that you can prove a digital asset is yours. So if you think about it, you put all of your media on social media right now, right? You give it for free, you give it to all the social media giants, they keep it on their servers and they monetize it. What you can actually do with NFTs and blockchain is prove that you own that digital asset and you can potentially monetize it. A bit like in the Bored Ape Yacht Club, they've opened burger bars, kind of turning it into their brand. So that token, if he opened 200 burger bars, that token will then be worth a lot more money because that brand will be associated with that chain of burger bars. So, and there's lots of different use cases, but it's just proof of ownership essentially of a digital asset. I think there's a guy at the back.
Good morning. Excellent presentation, I have to say. I've learned so much in this presentation that you have given. My name is Rami. I'm from a company called Miracle. So I'm familiar with the Gary V Friends network that he has. A friend of mine explained it to me, and to me, all it seems like is he was using his popularity within his followers to create this hype, this kind of bubble, to get people to kind of purchase and repurchase these NFTs and such. And I think is that what it is? Basically, him being able to use his hype, and is it just basically a bubble? That's kind of what it seemed to me when he explained it. But like, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, there's no doubt that Gary V's NFT collection is highly successful because of his Web 2 following. You know, he's got millions of followers on social media, so that has helped him grow his NFT brand. I think in terms of the hype, that doesn't just apply to V-Friends, it applies to all NFT projects, in the sense that last year there was so much hype around NFTs. People were were not buying and collecting NFTs for their actual use case. They were buying them to flip them and make a quick profit. You know, you buy it this morning, sell it within a few hours to make money. So that hype was actually applied to pretty much all NFT projects, not to VFriends, but yeah, there definitely was a lot of hype last year, but that's calmed down now in 2022, as you can see from the graph. Yeah. I think that's it. So thank you. Cheers.